On this episode of Deep Dive, we are going to talk about the amazing history of women's matches at Survivor Series. Enjoy and stay tuned.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hello, and welcome back to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling podcast on the planet. I am Candace, the ladies wrestling griot, and it is awesome to be back. This is one of my favorite times of the year, one of my favorite weeks of the year, Thanksgiving time. So I had to talk about another thing that goes into why this is such a fun time of the year for me, and that has to be Survivor Series. Survivor Series has been a staple in the homes of wrestling fans during Thanksgiving week since 1987. Outside of chowing down and pretty much inhaling as much food as humanly possible in one day and still making room for impulse buying, wrestling fans still want to see two dream teams come together and battle it out, but not just to win the Survivor Series match, but to have bragging rights for a whole year's time. This week, I thought that we should look back at this time-honored tradition and to specifically talk about women's matches in Survivor Series, but really dive into the traditional elimination matches. We will touch upon the solo matches, but I really want to do a deep dive into a lot of the chemistry that we've seen in these matches with these teams that have come together for one time out of the year to put away their petty squabbles, to take on a team, and to get credit for their team. So let's get right into the first Survivor Series. As I was doing this research, it was nice to remember again that even at the first Survivor Series, you had such a strong showing for women's wrestling with this new concept really being brought to life. And what great teams that we had to actually start this off. So with this first Survivor Series women's match, we had an amazing team with two phenomenal leaders. We had Team Sherry, that was composite of Sherry Martel, Dawn Marie, not to be confused with the Dawn Marie from the 2000s, Donna Costantello, and the Glamour Girls, which were made up of Leilani Kai and Judy Martin. Then we have Team Fabulous Moolah, which was made up of Velvet McIntyre, Rockin' Robin, and the Jumping Bomb Angels. And I just have to point out, because I am such a fan of Sherry Martel, I just love this picture that's captured of Sherry, because you can just see how excited she was to have this type of match, but to be the leader of this and to really set it home that her team was definitely going to take home the gold. So that was really cool. And we have with this match so many nuggets and things that I would like to point out, because this was a really good match. I feel like this time period when you had women in the WWE doesn't really get as much credit. And yes, it is because it was a short amount of time that you had women in WWE in the 80s. But there was a lot of awesome things that happened within, I would say, maybe 3 to 4 years time in the 80s that women were very present in the company and really present not only on the WWE Women's title hunt, but on the tag team hunt. And we see that with the Survivor Series teams, that the women are bringing up a lot of things in this match that have carried out from their personal feuds that they've had, whether it be Sherry and Moolah coming in with that anger and resentment that they have for each other because they both want that title that Sherry currently at that time had on her waist, and how Moolah did not forget that. And I like that this Survivor Series actually took place on Thanksgiving night. That was pretty cool. And both teams really did a wonderful job of isolating the competition whenever they got a chance. And it really was a push and pull between both teams to see really who can come out strong. And every woman played their part well. I think one of the biggest standouts of this match would have to be the Jumping Bomb Angels. They really had such an incredible high-flying style that really was pretty new, whether it be a male talent or a female talent in the company at the time. So it was really cool to see that on full display. You were seeing what a lot of spoiled Japanese fans were able to see all the time with this amazing wrestling that the Jumping Bomb Angels had on display. And I loved how you saw that play on the feud that the Jumping Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls already had was in full effect in this match. And the Glamour Girls were truly going after the Jumping Bomb Angels to make sure that they could not get an advantage in this match. So it was just head-on collision throughout this match from top to bottom. No one made sure that anyone even had breathing room in this match to get the leg up. It was so physical. And I loved how the Glamour Girls really brought that power and brawn in this match. They were a tough duo to beat, and they really stood together in this match. But ultimately, the Jumping Bomb Angels were able to secure the win for Team Moolah. I would really recommend, if you have never seen this match, to check it out. It was a great way to usher in the idea of Survivor Series, and along with the male Survivor Series match for this year, I think that the women really stood toe-to-toe with the men. So definitely check out that first WrestleMania, the first Survivor Series match with the women. Incredible. So even though this was a great match, we did not see any Women's Survivor Series matches again until 1995. And one of my favorite Survivor Series elimination team matches for the women, which was Team Blaze, that consisted of Kyoko Inoue, Sasaki Hasegawa, Chaparita Asari versus Team Faye, which consisted of Bertha Faye, Aja Kong, Tamagamo Watanabe, and Lioness Ahsoka. And if you could put a dream team together in 1995, this was certainly one of them. This was, to me, one of the best matches that they had on for tonight, that night. And I must say, actually, 1995 Survivor Series across the board was rather good. As I looked back on this, it was actually a pretty stacked card. There was some duds, of course, but for the most part, it was pretty stacked. And the women's match certainly played a part into why you would actually want to go back and see this mid-90s Survivor Series. So we get into the match, and I just found it hilarious because this happened all the time whenever they would have teams, the dream teams in the 90s, where usually the heel team never had a moment to really come out and have an entrance. They were just in the ring already, and we saw that with this. So we did not get a chance to individually see the women on Bertha Faye's team actually come out, but we got a grand entrance for the team's leader for Team Blaze, Alundra Blaze, coming out with her awesome entrance, and it really set the tone that we were in for a treat. And I loved how each team knew what they were supposed to. They were on point, well, how they were supposed to bring it. And as much as we obviously love everything that Alundra Blaze brought to the women's division during the New Generation era, really have to point out in this match that on Team Blaze's team, you cannot ignore, to me, in my opinion, the type of presence that Chaparita Asari's amazing ring gear had with bringing this full on Joshi presentation that a lot of fans that were already watching what was happening in places like All Japan Women's Wrestling was already privy to. I think that this was awesome that you were seeing Asari be a part of what they were trying to form with the women's division during the New Generation era. So Asari's ring gear, that was really giving Power Ranger vibes during this time. And then her aerial moves, like her famous Sky Twister press, was really a highlight. Something that I definitely think cannot be ignored. Let me get to the, so you can see, because this was to me a dream team that they put together during this particular Survivor Series match. And for them to have such a gap in the women's matches, they came back strong. And from what I hear, a lot of the women that came from Japan in this match actually just came from Japan directly after being in action in Japan and had to immediately go into this match. But you cannot tell if there's any jet lag or anything with these women, because they truly brought it in this match. And as I just stated, to me, on Team Blaze team, everyone was a standout. But I think that Chaparita Azari's presence and her phenomenal in-ring skill was certainly a highlight for Team Blaze's team. I think that Hasegawa's suplexes were fan favorites for this match. Whenever she would pull those out, the fans were really behind her. And I think that that was a really strong babyface team that they created. And it's something definitely to highlight, because many times the conversation is definitely around the head of the division, at this time, Alundra Blaze, but a lot of women that were coming from other promotions around the world were certainly just as gifted in the ring. One of the things definitely that was a highlight in this match was how much Aja Kong was just dismantling the challengers. She had the most eliminations in this match. You just start to see over time how you have this women in the ring, and then all of a sudden you just see Kong taking away everyone, so that at that point Alundra Blaze is left to do all the work for her team as she went 1-on-3. And I will definitely give it to Alundra Blaze. She quickly dismantled the rest of Bertha Faye's team, so that at a very quick moment in the match, it was Aja Kong versus Alundra Blaze. She tried to give her all, but it is almost impossible to take away the type of power and quickness that Aja Kong has. It's pretty much as if like you're trying to fight your ability to have enough stamina to survive in the ring with someone like Aja Kong. And we see this match come to an end when Aja Kong delivers one of her frightening back fist to Alundra Blaze that literally leaves her dazed and needing attendance after the match. So this was, to me, definitely a match that you should put up there with one of the best matches that the women have had at Survivor Series, one that I will always recommend. But it is bittersweet because you see the way that they're putting over Aja Kong in WWE. You know that they really wanted to have possibly a long-standing feud with Alundra Blaze and Aja Kong, but this is cut short when just at a short period of time after this match, we see that the women's division becomes defunct, and we cannot, we can dream or think about what could have happened with this women's division, but it was all wiped away as if it had never existed. And I think that is such a travesty, because even with the Survivor Series match, you see how many women could have come into this company and really tore it up. But, you know, you can only dream. And at least we have this to know that there was a desire to really bring in some great Joshi wrestling, especially how good it was in the 90s with Joshi wrestling. It really could have been a game changer for the type of women's division that you could have had in WWE. But for whatever reasons, we weren't able to see that past 1995. So just like we saw that gap after the 1987 Survivor Series match, we see a gap again after the 1995 Women's Survivor Series match, where we still don't get a full-on elimination teams match in 1998, but we do get a solo match between Sable and Jacqueline. And I know that there's so much like controversy surrounding, especially at this time, if people should still be a fan of Sable if they were back in the day, or if they should just feel like it was a waste of time. I have to say that I actually liked the way that Sable was marketed and pushed in this particular feud. And I love that they brought Jacqueline in for this. I love how they really made sure that they extended this feud so that it really built up the fans' ability to want to see Sable actually get in the ring. I think it did great things for Jacqueline to come into WWE with this feud. And I think it did a good job of really pushing for this new reinstated women's title. So before this 1998 Survivor Series match, Jacqueline and Sable had a competition before. They had competed before. There was a lot of heat because at this time, Mark Merrill, with this great turn in his character, actually, because I actually really liked it. This great turn in his character, we were able to see that he had a great dancing partner, I think, with Jacqueline to really build on the low self-esteem that he actually had with seeing Sable's star rise, and how that really did get to him, and how he had finally found someone that could take it to Jacqueline in a way that he couldn't, of course. And I think that Jacqueline did a really good job of putting over Sable and putting over herself at the same time. So we see leading into this match, this awesome buildup with previous matches, the antics that you saw Mark Merrill and Jacqueline have to get to the point where they were really sticking it to Sable and making her feel like she would do anything to get that title back. I really love the use of Sunday Night Heat to really build up the match even more leading into this 1998 Survivor Series match. I love that they taunted at the thing that they're obviously jealous of Sable, which is her looks and the way that people perceive her, by cutting off her hair, having Jacqueline wear it, and just taunt her that it was a really good build up to this match that they did not rush. And during this match, you see Mark Merrill trying to constantly interfere in it while Sable is still keeping calm, staying focused, and even pulling off one of the things that got the biggest pop of the night, which is Sable putting on that Sable bomb on Mark Merrill, which I don't think people were expecting her to get that physical with Mark Merrill. And at that point, pretty much almost laying up the law that she was going to win that night. Not that anyone was surprised, but I think that helped for a lot of people that possibly didn't feel that Sable would be as physical in the match. That it set the tone that she really was going to come in and try to put on the best show as possible, and really make that women's title look like it's something that every woman that was in the company would want to win. So after that Sable bomb to Mark Merrill, Sable's in her stride. She gets the Sable bomb on Jacqueline to win the title back. So just like I said, I know, and I definitely get that Sable was certainly not a wrestler. But if you are going to have Sable in a match, it was a wonderful idea to have someone like Jacqueline that could really help to make her look like $1,000,000. And she certainly did. And of course, this really led to talks of the women's title being back on the lips of people in WWE. So that was really cool to see, because especially a fan like me, I was looking forward to seeing that title defended again. So that was awesome. We get into the 1999 Women's Survivor Series match, and we're back with teams again. So that was really cool to see. We have Team Ivory and Team Moolah. Now, at this time, going into this match, Ivory comes into it with the women's championship, and she has some beef with Moolah and Mae Young. And this would have been great if they would have played on that a bit more, and they kind of did. But mostly, we immediately start this match with the fans being trained to chant "We want puppies" throughout most of the beginning of the match. So yeah, good times, good attitude era times, where that's the expectation for this match. And on Team Moolah's side, we have Moolah, Deborah, Mae Young, and Tori. Not to be confused with Tori Wilson, but Tori, who came in as the crazy Starker fan of Sable, who went on to be a part of DX. That Tori against Team Ivory, which had Ivory, Jacqueline, Luna, and Terry Runnels. Now, looking at that lineup, this could have actually been a fantastic match. I really don't think sometimes that people really look at how strong that roster is. And even when I look back at a lot of matches that they were trying to have with the women then, even though it was not perfect, they didn't have the longest amount of times to fight, these were actually really good matches for the time that they were given. And there was some amazing wrestlers that they had on the roster. And this setup for this team, the way that they build up the teams for this 1999 Survivor Series, could have been really strong. But we have, instead of having all of these talented women like Ivory, like Tori, like Jacqueline, like Luna come into the ring and have these really good spots, we really have a quick match that ends with Moolah pinning Ivory and the crowd going nuts when Deborah rips off Terry Runnels' shirt. So it was definitely treated like a bathroom break match from the higher ups, which is a travesty, because this was actually an incredible roster of women's wrestlers. But we kind of know what to expect many times from these type of matches, especially when you have several women involved in it during the Attitude Era. We kind of know what we're going to get from that. So even though on paper, when you're looking at the women that were in these matches, it's absolutely great, it still doesn't really bring what you could have seen from the level of talent that they actually had on both teams. But, that's how it goes. In the 1999 Survivor Series match, pay-per-view, we do have where Chyna, who is kind of, in a different spot than any of the other women, where at this point she is competing with men, and actually at the peak of getting a lot of accolades that she was really looking forward to having and achieving on the men's roster. And the crowd was red hot for it at this time. And in this particular Survivor Series, she was going against Chris Jericho. She had Miss Kitty alongside her in this match, and she faced off against a clearly reluctant Chris Jericho. This wasn't the best match that Chyna had. It just always seemed whenever she was facing off against Jericho that they just did not mesh well. Even when they were really trying, it just didn't always come off like that. So you kind of get where you can see the stiffness in a lot of the moves, or this reluctance to do everyone's moves. But I feel as far as the promo work that they would usually do, the back and forth banter that Chris Jericho and Chyna would usually have, I think that was pretty good, because it felt like they were actually playing on the fact that Chris Jericho more than likely felt, especially with that big debut that he had, that he might have been competing with or wanted to compete with men at that time and not necessarily Chyna. And I like that Chyna was playing out the fact that she knew because she had already been through this for years, that a lot of guys may not have wanted to get in the ring with her, but they didn't have a choice because she was going to keep getting these different accolades and constantly trying to go higher and higher on the men's roster. So even though it didn't, turn out great, I still think that it's something that is a positive and a plus in China's catalog that really set the tone for the fact that she was going to keep adding certain things and notches under her belt. I actually really loved, and I don't know like if anyone else feels this way, but how Miss Kitty and China kind of worked off of each other, because what China was in, like the stage that she was in, I thought it was pretty cool that, it wasn't that much expectation on Miss Kitty. So for her to kind of just really be there rooting for China and pretty much like her mini me, I thought that that was actually pretty cool. And it really worked. So Chris Jericho had the best debut of all time, and they cut to this feud, because looking back, especially as a girl at that time with girl power, I'm thinking, why would he want to work with China? But at the same time, looking back, I can definitely understand why it seemed like it was a demotion, because sometimes even when I'm looking back as someone that is a uber China fan, I love China, still love China to this day, I feel like the chemistry was not there. But also, I don't know what the benefit was for someone like Chris Jericho, who was still trying to get a leg up and really firmly plant himself on the men's roster. I don't really know what he would have gotten out of that feud. So it did not really make sense looking back. So I can totally get why this may not have been something that Chris Jericho really wanted to get into at that time. It makes total sense. But China did come out on top in this match to retain her title. So now we go to 2000's Survivor Series, and we see Ivory take on Lita. To me, this was a really strong match between Ivory and Lita. I think that it's actually probably a highlight in Lita's career, with that awesome spot that we got from Lita getting the tail end of Ivory's boot on her eyebrow and having that spot where you see the blood coming down, in her being really tough and continue on with the fight and showing how tough she was indeed. I think it just added another notch in her belt to what people thought about Lita, especially at that time, that she was one of the toughest girls on the roster and that she was badass. I think it went with that. And I think that in this match, Ivory really continuously showed how underrated she was, but how she could also constantly bring out banger at the banger, because I think that sometimes when we're in like this weird period in 2000 where there were women that were holding that women's title and doing a great job of it, usually now they don't get pointed out as much. And I think that Ivory is certainly one of them. She was really doing a great job of having some amazing feuds during this time as the champ. Just like I was saying, going into the 1999 Survivor Series match, but those matches usually don't get talked about as much. But I thought that this match actually was one of my favorites that Ivory had while holding the title. I completely agree with this. So hopefully that type of commentary on Ivory as a champ, as a in-ring personality too, because Ivory oozed personality. No matter like what type of character she had, it was so entertaining. So all around, I completely agree with this statement. And I love you, Ivory. Okay, I love everything you did, and it was a treat going back and looking at a lot that Ivory accomplished during this time. So great singles match between Ivory and Lita during this Survivor Series match. So we're going to get into another match that they had in 2000. We had it wasn't necessarily like the traditional Survivor Series matches where we just had women in it. We had women sprinkled into different Survivor Series matches, like Team Holly and Team TNA, where we had Molly Holly on the side of the Hollies, and we had Trish Stratus on the side of TNA. And at this time, because sometimes you kind of forget, because time just goes by, but both teams really got a huge pop when they came out for this match. Of course, both women did. And I really forgotten about this match, so I didn't know really what to expect, but this was a really solid match for what it was supposed to bring. It's supposed to be a match many times that you have like in the beginning or maybe in the middle of Survivor Series 2, you know, kind of pep up the crowd, and it certainly did that. I thought that Ivory really did a good job of showing what she could do. I think that Trish was really good at playing on being a heel and just really antagonizing someone like Molly Holly. And Molly Holly helped her team get the win. So that was pretty cool. It was just a really good match. It's just not something where you're expecting, especially Trish at that time, to be as experienced as Molly Holly. But I think that she did a good job of really playing on the fact that she's usually not going to do that much in the ring because she's going to let her guys usually come in and do what they do best. So I thought that was actually pretty good. Then we have Team Billy Gunn versus Team Benoit, and we have Chyna in this as the only woman that's in this match. I actually really liked this match. I had another match I had completely forgotten about. So Chyna's in this match, but in this team, you have on Billy Gunn's team, Road Dogg, K-Quick, now known as R-Truth. Then you have on Chris Benoit's side, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, and Eddie Guerrero. This is a really strong Survivor Series match. These teams are solid, you know, so this was really cool seeing Chyna in that mix. And even though she did not last long in the match, I wasn't expecting any different, but she still had a strong showing. And Billy Gunn really had a strong showing in this match, by the way. This was actually, to me, some of the best work that Billy Gunn actually did in WWE, because he had to essentially fight pretty much every member of Team Benoit and hold his own. So he really did a stand-up job after he lost all his members of his team. So it was good to see Billy actually get that win and them have a really solid team. So this was actually a good match that I would recommend. And it was nice to see that with Chyna's goals of making sure that she was more so on the men's roster, that she was actually able to be a part of this match. That was cool to see. Okay, why was I thinking the same thing when I was watching this match? Like, I obviously remember that R-Truth came in as K-Quick, but even when I'm looking at him at this time, this is 2000, this man seems like he does not age. It was really cool seeing a very young K-Quick and his interaction with Road Dogg and how they came out and how they had their signature entrance and everything. That was actually cool to go back and relive that time. So I definitely agree. I don't think R-Truth will ever age. We'll have to wait and see. But this was, to me, a strong showing for the 2000 Survivor Series in general, for the women that were involved in just like different pockets of Survivor Series matches, and the solo Survivor Series match that we saw with Ivory and Lita. Very good showing for the women for that year. Then we go to, I believe, probably one of the best showings of women at Survivor Series, which was the 2021 six-pack challenge match that we saw, where you really knew at this point that WWE really wanted to push a full-fledged women's division that was going to be taken more seriously. And this was like some of the first stages of that with this match. And initially going into the match, no one knew who the sixth woman was going to be, but we were pleasantly surprised when Jazz was the last woman to be announced for this match. She made her debut in it, and she definitely stood out as she quickly tried to make quick work of these other women in the matches. Immediately when I saw Jazz come into this match, I knew that I wanted to make dream matches in my head of who she was going to compete with as she became a staple in this roster. And I love that not only Jazz came out strong, but we even had this awesome spot in the match where every woman was able to do her finisher and really show off what they had to bring, because it was really making it clear how different these women were and what they were going to bring to the table, what type of style that they had. So that was a really good spot in the match, as you see every woman get her chance to shine. And even though every woman got their chance to shine, Trish was the one that came out on top of this match. But we pretty much already knew, even with the different women coming, that Trish was going to be more of the head of this division. But to me, it's one of the highlights and marker points that we put usually when we talk about that golden era that we had in going into the 2000s for the women. This match was certainly that flag that was put out to make it clear that we were moving into a different stage. And after 2001, all the way up into 2007, we see solo title matches instead of the traditional Survivor Series team matches. So that kind of started off in 2002 when we are really into the golden era in WWE for women, where we have Victoria versus Trish at Survivor Series in the Chicago Street Fight. Once again, build up incredible. Okay, the build up was phenomenal for this. I was definitely Team Victoria at the time. Kind of still am, even though I love Trish. But I mean, come on, the way that they brought in Victoria. And I loved how they really played on the fact that Victoria had this grudge because she knew that she was in line along with Trish to be a big part in the women's roster for WWE, but they, for some reason, picked Trish instead of her, and she was coming to take that spot. And I love the opportunities that they gave Victoria and Trish to really push the limits for what women were doing, how physical they can get, and really getting some really good on-screen time to really push this feud to the limit. We see in this match a lot of physicality, some really rough spots with kendo sticks, trash bins being thrown. Victoria had seeing some blood, some color in this match, and it was just a solid match that really solidified that we were in a new era and we had someone like Victoria. And I completely agree. One of the things that I loved about Victoria, and you can see we're really coming out of that Attitude Era a bit, that you were seeing a bit of diversity in the type of characters that the females were putting on in this very perfect spot at the time for women's wrestling. So that was really cool to see. Definitely still a match that I feel like many times I don't even have to watch it because I have memorized so many parts of this match, especially because that was in my formative years where I was really trying to figure out how did I feel about women's wrestling. And I feel like this was the perfect time to see these type of matches for women to solidify my love for women's wrestling. So we go from that to the 2003 Survivor Series match. Once again, a solos match between Lita and Molly Holly. Just like we're speaking about Ivory, I feel the same way about Molly Holly. She had a really great run with this women's championship, and many times is not mentioned. You'll have people talking about the impressive moves or leadership that Molly Holly had in the ring, but she actually had a really great reign as champion. And I think that this match with Lita was a part of that. They had really great chemistry together. This was a really solid match. And even after this, I believe this was kind of like on the road to WrestleMania 20. You can really see that Molly Holly was really pushing to have some great matches on these big pay-per-views to really make sure that there was a women's presence on these matches and really campaigning for it. And I believe that this was even mentioned during the Ruthless Aggression series that WWE made for WWE Network and Peacock to really set home the type of work that Molly Holly was doing backstage to make sure that these type of matches were being put on. And I definitely agree. Molly Holly did have a really great run in WWE. And I think that constantly needs to be reiterated that two women don't make up a roster. And there are a lot of women during that golden age period in WWE that really put in the work. And Molly Holly, certainly one of them. So this was definitely a very strong women's match. So then we get into 2004 with this a great match between Trish Stratus and Lita that had a phenomenal build up to it, that really set home that you need these strong feuds to keep people in their seats to see this match. And you saw for months how Trish was just such a damn heel at this time. And she was really getting under the skin of Lita. And Lita's storylines at this time were just crazy. She was pregnant 1 minute, then she lost her baby. She's going through it mentally, and Trish just keeps antagonizing her the entire time, to the point that when you see Lita coming down the ramp in this match, you can tell she just wants to strangle Trish. And Trish is still going into full heel mode, messing with Lita as she's coming down to the ramp. So what happens? We get a match that's not long, but very impactful, with showing what you do and what type of wrath you incur when you mess with someone like Lita. And Trish cannot get an offense in this match. Lita immediately goes for the kill and just completely decimates Trish throughout this entire match, to the point where she really damages Trish's nose, hits her with the chair several times by ringside, to the point where Lita loses the match because of disqualification. And even then, she does not stop. It is to the point where you have to have several refs come out to restrain Lita. And this was, to me, a very good example of, even if you don't have that much time, make the best of it and make people remember your match. I definitely think that they did that. And I totally agree that Trish was a savage on the microphone. Sometimes I think that Trish doesn't get that much props for that, because she is very good at being the antagonizer. Definitely had a great career with being a babyface, but I'm not gonna lie, Trish knows how to go in her bag as a heel. Yes, because right after this match was a good point, and I was chuckling to myself as I was doing the research for this, but this created the era of the face mask for Trish, and it just heightened her time as a heel for sure. So it's definitely something that's funny to think about, that Trish had that stage during her heel run where she had to wear that mask and still look beautiful. So we go into 2005. You start to see a shift kind of on the women's roster. Still solid matches, but a lot of changing hands with like who's on the roster and who we're being introduced to. And I really think that this was a really good match to put on for this year's Survivor Series, because Melina was really making a name for herself as a heel, a part of a really cool staple with Eminem. So this was really cool to see. We see in this match that Trish has Mickie James alongside her, and she's really rooting her on. We see John Morrison and Joey Matthews come out to have the back of Melina, and I absolutely love the involvement of Eminem during this match. I love the action between Trish and Melina when Eminem were removed from ringside. It really allowed you to see that Melina could hold her own with someone that was experienced like Trish. And even though Trish got the win, I think that this was definitely a good rub off for Melina to be in the ring with someone like Trish. So they just kept coming with the hits with the Survivor Series solo matches. I definitely agree. At the time, I did feel that way about Melina, but it's so funny looking back now when you start to really embrace that good heel work that you see from certain people. And there's just really good stuff. So yeah, that was to me a solid match to really rein in that. Now we're starting to have new women come in and really bring it to some of the people that were staples on the women's division. And we get to 2006 with Mickie James going alongside, facing off against Lita. And this is a bit of a controversial one because it had absolutely nothing to do with the actual match. It really has to do with what happened after, because Mickie James and Lita had some great in-ring chemistry together in this matchup. It was really good, a solid match. And we already knew going into this match that Lita had already stated that she was going to retire. So you would think at the end, as Mickie James actually won the match, that we're going to kind of get like a possibly passing of the torch symbolically with Lita and Mickie James shaking hands and having like a moment where they're really embracing the fact that now Mickie James is coming to her own. But we did not see that. We see Mickie James go off, and then we have where Crime Time starts selling off Lita's things. And honestly, in hindsight, it's like, did you really need to have that moment? No offense to Crime Time, but did you need to have that moment? Well, we know that this is Lita's last match in WWE at the time, you know, what we perceived, and it actually was for a really long time. But at the same time, can you really be surprised with how, I would say probably for a span of 2 years, possibly more, my math might be off, that Lita's skills in ring and the great feuds that she was still having all the time were completely overshadowed with the type of character that they had Lita doing, that honestly, I don't think that they would have given Lita that type of integrity to have her have a good send-off, even though Trish got that good send-off when she retired. I just thought it was really sleazy, like how they had it, where they had Crime Time making it clear we're selling off all of her, you know, private possessions, and really embarrassing her, just pretty much trying to set the record clear that as we've been building up for years, keep reminding yourself, even with Lita having this great match, that she's a whore that we need to keep putting on blast. And I just thought that it was distasteful for someone that was retiring. They could have let Lita have that moment where she felt that respect for what she had brought to the company. So it is a good match, and I would recommend for people to see it. You can see Lita's retirement match, even though she has come back later, but at that time, it definitely was. The match was solid. So I would recommend actually seeing that. So as we get into 2007, we start getting back into elimination matches, and we have a Divas era that now is in full swing, and we start getting back into the traditional Survivor Series matches, and we have a 10 Diva tag team match, which to me actually was pretty good. We have Team Beth, which had Melina, Jillian Hall, Layla, Victoria, and of course Beth Phoenix. On Team Mickie, we have Mickie James, Michelle McCool, Tori Wilson, Kelly Kelly, Mickie James, and Maria. I think that in this match, Beth Phoenix was certainly a standout, and she had a really good team. Mickie James was a leader for her team in every way, because she definitely had to really try to hide the fact that a lot of her teammates were really new to the business. So she really had to probably do like extra work, but I feel that it still came off as solid of a match that you can have. But Beth was really doing her thing in this match. And I'm sure that that was the thing that was a big talking point in putting this match together, which is that they really wanted to show the Glamazon in all her glory in a match like this, where she could really show how dominant she was. So that was really cool to see in this match. So we go into 2008 elimination match. So we have Team SmackDown with Michelle McCool, Maria, Maurice, Natalia, and Victoria. I'm sorry, on Raw. That was Team Raw. And then on Team SmackDown, we have Beth Phoenix, Candice Michelle, Jillian Hall, Kelly Kelly, and Mickie James. Let's get that up right here. So yeah, a very solid roster here of women that really were trying to pull off some really good matches. So not really any complaints here on my end with viewing this. Let me see, is this the one? Let's go back. Yes, that's the one. That's the one from 2008. And Beth Phoenix was the women's champion at this time, and Michelle McCool was the Divas champion. So both women were captains in the Survivor Series match, and certainly standouts. Now, this was a time when I was not watching WWE, so to go back and see that not only Beth Phoenix was just a force to be reckoned with, but I think we need to put some respect on Michelle McCool's name because she was handling business in these matches. And I just thought that was absolutely hilarious that they put some humor into this match too, with Team SmackDown not being on one accord and constantly tagging out each other because they wanted to get the spotlight in this match. I thought that that was really funny. And in the Survivor Series match, we go back to elimination rules, which I thought was great, instead of just having one pin to win the entire match. And I must say that Mickie James and Michelle McCool had some great chemistry together in this match. Natalya was getting a bit of spotlight, and she got a huge pop when she put on the sharpshooter, so that was really cool. Maurice really brought it in this match as a heel. I think that's something that must be highlighted and is really fun to look back on in her early years in WWE. But ultimately, that Phoenix gets the win for her team. And I really enjoyed this match. It was the first time that I've actually seen this match, and I would recommend it. I would. So now we go to 2009's Elimination Survivor Series match. And we have in this match, we have Team Mickie James, which has Mickie, Eve Torres, Gail Kim, Kelly Kelly, Melina, Beth Phoenix versus Team Michelle McCool, which consists of Alicia Fox, Jillian Hall, Layla, and Gail Kim. Sorry, Gail Kim was on Team Mickie. Michelle McCool is the women's champion at this time and wearing it well. Melina is the Divas champion, and I think this was great for Melina. Melina was really a strong champion. And one of the highlights that I enjoyed in this match was seeing Gail Kim. I was a big TNA Knockouts fan this time, so at the time I was pissed that Gail Kim came back. But looking back, she came for her own reasons. She had a strong showing in this match, but she was eliminated really early in it. So from what she was able to do, it was a strong showing. I thought that one of the big highlights with the altercations in this match was Melina and Michelle McCool. They had really great chemistry too, and it really showed why they were both champs. So it was really good. At the end of the day, Team Mickie James wins this. It was a solid match for sure. Then we start getting into the 2010s. And once again, we kind of go back to having these solo matches. Let me see. Yeah, it was a really good match. Really good match. I would say from me not watching any of these women that actually came on, I was really surprised to see how much I was enjoying these matches. The women were really doing their thing in this. So we go back to solo matches in 2010 with a 2-on-1 handicap match between Natalya versus LayCool. And LayCool was making sure that they had the girls on lock. They were making sure that they invented something that no one else had before. They decided that they were going to be co-captains and hold that Divas title, and Natalya was coming for it. And at this point in 2010, Natalya had put in the work, and the fans were ready to see Natalya as a champ. And coming into this match, the fans were really behind her. And she really had a struggle with trying to make sure that she can juggle facing both Layla and Michelle McCool. And it was a little bit bumpy at first because Michelle and Layla were on Natalia's back, but the crowd was behind her. Natalia got her energy back and she proved that she could face off with both women, and she successfully captured the Divas title. And I really liked that moment when you saw the sincerity from Natalia, that she was so happy to have that title, even though she was attacked by Lay Cool right after that very beautiful moment of her actually capturing the title. But I like that they preserved Lay Cool's heel-like tendencies, because that's something that I actually miss. I like seeing the heels be pissed off that they actually lost the match instead of always shaking the hands of the person that won. I actually like that Lay Cool did that at the end. So that was pretty cool. It's funny because I felt the same way about Lay Cool, but it's funny when I look back with the way that they were trying to build up certain baby faces like Natalia, or the time when Lay Cool was really into a feud with Mickie James. They certainly helped to get those baby faces over. So for that, I'll definitely give them their props. So this was a very strong showing for Natalia, and she was able to hold that Divas title. So that was pretty cool to see. And then in 2011, we actually had one of my favorite, now newly favorite Survivor Series matches, was a Lumberjill match between Eve Torres and Beth Phoenix. I really love this match because Beth was a freaking monster to Eve. She did not let up in this match at all. And she was really laying into her, not giving Eve a moment to breathe. And Eve was really getting pushed as a babyface at that time. And this match was definitely one of the factors that pushed fans to see how awesome she was. And I loved that you had this Glamazon monster intimidating Eve somewhat, but then also having the other heel divas also at ringside for this Lumberjill match, and even the baby faces looking like they wouldn't dare try to interfere with Beth Phoenix being in the ring. And one of the biggest highlights of this match is when Beth Phoenix pulls off the glam slam from the top rope to win. It got one of the biggest pops of the night, and it's always going to be something that is in Beth Phoenix's highlight reel because it's just spectacular. I'm pretty sure that will always be something on rotation whenever they're showing anything about Beth Phoenix. This was a really good match. And see, it was like I said, that spot will always be the main thing that will come to people's heads when they think about Beth Phoenix. So definitely a really good match in 2011 for the Survivor Series for women's representation at that show. We go into 2012, and it is Kaitlyn versus Eve Torres. With this match, you see a different Eve Torres. She is oozing confidence, but it's not that same babyface Eve Torres. And Kaitlyn comes in this match believing that Eve attacked her backstage days prior to this match. She feels like she has all the evidence that she needs. She knows for sure, and she wants to get some revenge. And Kaitlyn really holds her own in this match. It was really cool to see, especially with Kaitlyn being so new. She really did do a good job of holding her own. Definitely someone that I think that people really wanted to get behind because of her build and what she could bring to the roster. But Eve does a great job in this match of really toying and manipulating Kaitlyn in this match, with wanting to pretend she needed sympathy and needed Kaitlyn to kind of hold off with her assaults in the ring, only to gain the upper hand again and retain her title. So this was, to me, a good match at showing how Eve was changing and how she was a brand new woman with that title. Yeah, Hill Eve did make her more sexy. On her front, that was a cool shift in her character. And I loved Kaitlyn's run in WWE as well. She did have one of the best spears. Thank you, because I felt the same way for a long time. And that was the time that I was getting back into WWE. So Kaitlyn was definitely one that I liked, and I loved seeing the evolution of Eve at this time. So we move from the 2012 Survivor Series to 2013. And this was one that I was particularly looking forward to see because it was Total Divas. And we had the Bella Twins, Eva Marie, Cameron and Naomi, the Funkadactyls, JoJo and Natalia for Team Divas, and the True Divas, which was AJ Lee, Oksana, Alicia Fox, Caitlyn, Rosa Mendez, Summer Rae, and Tamina. The reason why I was looking forward to this match, and it really resonated with me, was because I thought it was totally fine for them to have Total Divas as a reality show. I was completely fine with it. But it, in my opinion, did absolutely nothing for the women's roster, the main roster for WWE. So I was completely on the Team AJ Lee train because you could see that AJ wanted a women's roster that was truly competitive. And she felt that as a champion, she shouldn't have to take a back seat to the Bellas. And this was a crazy time on the main roster in WWE because the fans were screaming for change, especially because of what they could see women doing in sports in general, but especially what they were starting to see at NXT. And AJ had been begging for this change for years. But we got Total Divas, and that was starting to take over the screen when we wanted to see better female matches instead of constantly going to the reality show. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of have a gripe that usually now in the history books for the Women's Revolution, we have the Bella Twins getting that credit for the push for better women's matches instead of AJ Lee. And to me, women like Paige and Emma in NXT that were really pushing for this. So I really love that they came with this match. I like that WWE was allowing AJ to say what she wanted to on the mic because of this. It was really, really good because I felt like everything I was feeling, AJ Lee was saying. So this was cool. So in the match, we can see that some of the highlights was that Alicia Fox looked like $1 million in this match. She came with all of the fury and rage that I think anyone of True Divas team needed. And Naomi was able to show that she would very soon be a staple member of the newly forming women's roster. I thought that she had a few good moments in this match to really show that she wasn't just a Funkadactyl. So that was cool. Tamina came in as a powerhouse in this match. So that was really cool to see. And I love the mind games that AJ was playing because even though she was pushing for this match, she let everyone else on her team do all the work. And she was smart enough to wait until all of her other team members were eliminated. And that's when she comes in. She lets the other team get really winded and flat out for her to finally come in. And Total Divas still wound up winning the match due to Natalia tapping out AJ Lee. But I think that AJ Lee still had the best strategy with trying to win this match. So it was something that was really cool. And I'm always going to be Team AJ Lee when it comes to that time in WWE. So we go from the Total Divas and True Divas match to we get to 2014. And we start to get into a more interesting time in WWE. We have Team Natalia, Alicia Fox, Emma, Naomi versus Team Paige, which is Cameron, Layla, and Summer Rae. And at this point, we start to see the first round of talent from NXT come up to the main roster and shape this new era in WWE. Paige and Natalia are really acting as leaders for their team. And I must say, this match was a bit clunky and certainly wouldn't be ranked as one of the best women's matches at Survivor Series. But on the positive side, it did help to show the newer talent that would come in and eventually play a really good role in the women's revolution in WWE. I think it was smart for booking to have Emma and Paige face off in this match because of the great chemistry that they already developed in NXT. So that was really good to see. That was a strong point in this match. and Naomi helps to get the wins for their team. So Team Natalia won in this. So just like I said, not the best match in Survivor Series history, but you can see that they were trying to really form what this new era on the main roster was going to be. And we have a solos match for this this Survivor Series, where we have Nikki Bella versus AJ Lee. Sorry, I do not have the picture for that. But coming into this match, AJ was once again playing serious mind games, and she was really playing on the fact that Nikki Bella and Brie Bella were having issues as sisters and really just getting on each other's nerves. So AJ just graciously played into that and had them feuding all the way up into this match. But the trick was actually on AJ, because in the beginning of this match, Brie Bella holds out the belt. AJ tries to take it from her, but then Brie shockingly kisses AJ, and Nikki uses this distraction to get AJ into the rack attack to win the Divas title. I'm pretty sure we already saw this coming because of the success of Total Divas and how much Nikki Bella was getting a lot of press for this. It made sense that at that time they were going to give Nikki Bella the title. So that definitely occurred at this time. And Nikki was definitely putting in the work. So it makes sense. So we move on to 2015 Survivor Series, and we have Paige versus Charlotte Flair. I was very happy to see this match, because then we started getting into the nooks and crannies of how great this could be. And how we could really formulate a really solid women's roster, and having Charlotte and Paige face off against each other was great. And I like how you can kind of see, especially when Paige was starting to almost get like in a heel run at this point, that both women felt like they really played a huge part in the women's revolution, and that they were both should be on the list of who should have that Divas title. And you couldn't shake that fact from either woman's head. So it was really cool to see how there was a bit of a score to settle with this match. And both women really took each other to the limit. But Charlotte was able to leave that match with the title when she put on the figure four leg lock to get the title. So we start to see a pattern from 2016 to 2020, where we have Team Raw versus Team SmackDown, when usually Team Raw would pick up the win, but still good matches nonetheless. So we go to 2016, and at this point, the women's roster is stacked on both Raw and SmackDown. So we have on Team Raw, Charlotte, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Alicia Fox, and Nia Jax versus Team SmackDown, Becky Lynch, Natalya, Alexa Bliss, Naomi, and Carmella. Charlotte is the captain of Raw, and Nikki Bella is taken out of this match backstage after she is attacked by someone and replaced by Natalya, who just so happens to be there at that time to take on this role. Nia Jax was a standout in this match, delivering double suplexes and clotheslines, just really showing how dominant she can be in this match. And it really, to me, was a highlight seeing Nia Jax. I know how a lot of people feel about it, but I think she had a really strong showing in this matchup. And Team Raw does win, with Bayley getting the Bayley to Bayley on Becky Lynch. And you would think that Charlotte would be happy that Bayley was able to get the win for the team, but Charlotte went right back to her feud with Bayley and attacked her right after the match. So that was really good to see that the alliances were gone once that bell rung, and Team Raw won. The feud with Bayley and Charlotte commenced. So I thought that was really a good spot. We go into 2017's Survivor Series match, where we have on Team Raw, we have Asuka, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Alicia Fox, Nia Jax versus Team SmackDown, Becky Lynch, Naomi, Natalya, Carmella, and Tamina. Alicia Fox is the captain for this year's Raw team. Becky Lynch, the captain of SmackDown. Team Raw was really on the same page and they worked well together. Nia Jax and Tamina collided and made must-see TV. I loved that spot in this match. I was hoping that they would actually play on that when this, first came out, when this match was announced, and they certainly made sure that they gave me what I needed. So that was awesome. I loved seeing Nia and Tamina collide. And Team Raw won again when Asuka chokes out Natalya. And just like I said, these were great matches, but they were trying to have Team Raw win every single time. But you know what? Can't do anything about that. But I mean, usually they always make it clear, whether it's the men's Survivor Series match or the women, that Team Raw is always going to usually win. Which I don't know how I feel about that, but all right. So we have in the solos match at Survivor Series, Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss. I thought this was a great showing, especially because you had both women. Okay, yes, I love this when it says, okay, they do SmackDown dirty every time. So I'm happy I'm not the only one that noticed that. But we have Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss. I like that they started really playing on really having both champions have to defend at Survivor Series or collide to show who is the strongest on paper, who's the strongest competitor and who can come out strong. In this match, Charlotte Flair wins. We go into 2018. Once again, Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. And on Team Raw, we have Sasha Banks, Mickie James, Bayley, Tamina, and Nia Jax versus Team SmackDown. We have Asuka, Naomi, Carmella, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville. Naomi is the captain for SmackDown for this year. And I'm not going to lie, she has such a great showing in the beginning. And then they immediately eliminate Naomi as the captain of the team. I was pissed. But at the same time, anything can happen in these matches. So there's a bit of realism there. But I was hoping to see more of Naomi in this match. One thing, because I don't think I watched this when this happened in real time. So I was really impressed to go back and see how impressive Mandy Rose was actually in this match. She really held her own. And that was really cool to see. And then Sonya Deville had energy for days in this match, just really laying out the competition. That was awesome. So those were really highlights in this 2018 Survivor Series match. We have Team Raw winning again with Nia Jax pinning Asuka. So just like I said, you saw the pattern for years with Team Raw versus SmackDown, where SmackDown can't get a win. But it's all right. We know how it goes because Raw has to always be the winning roster. But yeah, whatever. So we have another solos match. Women's solos match for Survivor Series, where we have Charlotte going against Ronda Rousey. And these two women always had chemistry. Even with some of the gripes that I have about a lot of Ronda Rousey matches in WWE, I will say I did enjoy the matches that she had with Charlotte. So we have Charlotte winning the match, but I thought they had good chemistry. We go into 2019 and we see a bit of a shift where we have not only Team Raw and Team SmackDown going against each other, but we bring in the women of NXT. And this was awesome for me because I was fully into NXT. So this was nice to see the girls that I enjoyed as well being brought up to represent for their brand. So on Team Raw for 2019, we have Charlotte Flair, Kairi Sane, Asuka, Natalya, Sarah Logan versus Team SmackDown, Lacey Evans, Carmella, Nikki Cross, Dana Brooke, Sasha Banks versus Team NXT, where we have Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Io Shirai, Candice LeRae, and Toni Storm. I think some of the highlights were Io Shirai and Kairi Sane have some really great moments together. They have chemistry, not just as a tag team, but even when they're going against each other. And that obviously even spans outside of WWE. So it was really good to see that. I love how they already painted NXT as the underdogs coming into this match, because then you saw that chip on the shoulder of the women of NXT and how that made them bring it even more during this match. So that was really cool to see. You saw Bianca really coming, because at that time Bianca really had a chip on her shoulder, and she would just always bring the nastiness to the match where she would just go in. And then you saw the same type of attitude with Rhea Ripley, and I liked how they would work off each other with that. You had Candice LeRae usually come in and just do these insane moves in the ring. You have Asuka, who is quick as lightning usually in these matches. Carmella usually bringing in like some of the funnier spots into the match. Natalya always being a staple as a leader on her team. So that was really cool to see. With everything that could have gone wrong with having 3 separate teams and many times having 3 women in the ring, this was actually pretty solid, and it didn't bring those type of issues. So that just goes to show how well this match was planned out. At the end, we have Team NXT win with Rhea Ripley getting the pin on Sasha Banks. So a really, really good match. And the solos match that we had for this year, we have Bayley versus Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler, as they all holding titles, and Shayna comes out on top. So then we get into the 2000s. We have for 2000 Survivor Series, we have on Team Raw. Let's see, on Team Raw, we have Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Layla, Lana, Lacey Evans, and Peyton Royce. On Team SmackDown, we have Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Bayley, and Natalya. And if you can remember this very distant time in history, this was the Thunderdome era for WWE, where the WWE performers really worked their butts off to prove that they were just as entertaining even without a physical crowd present. And I really think that all of the entertainers that were part of WWE during this uncertain time did an amazing job of bringing us entertainment. And one of the people that I think should get a spotlight in this match was Lana. She came in as an underdog, and she really showed that she had fight in her. She really went through it over the past few months at that time leading up to Survivor Series, how she just kept being put through a table over and over and over again. And she came into this match still happy, still wanting to be a part of it, and still showing what she could do. So she's definitely, to me, one of the biggest highlights of this match. Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan did a really great job in this match of showing the teamwork that they had and strategy. So that's definitely a highlight. However, even with the great teamwork, Team Raw yet again wins with Lana being the sole survivor. And in this one, I do feel that they could let Lana get it, because they weren't going to let her win a solos match. And even with her not doing that much, at least she was able to get this one to feel good about herself. So we're going to let Lana get that win, okay? We're not going to overanalyze it. So then we have in a solos match, we have Asuka versus Sasha Banks. And is there any time where they couldn't have a good match together? Just once again, another great match that Asuka and Sasha Banks had, with Asuka taking the win. So we get into 2021's Survivor Series, and we have Asuka and Sasha Banks, great match. Now we're into 2021's Survivor Series team match. On Team Raw, we have Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Carmella, and Queen Selena. On Team SmackDown, we have Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, and Toni Storm. One of the highlights in this match was seeing Bianca and Sasha Banks have their solo time in this match to really build on the fact that they just have amazing chemistry together, and gave us some great few minutes in the ring where we were able to just bask in their awesome work in the ring. So that was really good to see. At the end, Team Raw surprisingly gets the win with Bianca eliminating Shotzi. So in the solos match that we had for this night. Let's see if I have the picture. Yes, we have Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. And I would say this was a standout match. To me, one of the best matches that Charlotte Flair and and Becky Lynch have had, because I think that whether it was the attire where Becky Lynch was definitely giving Britney Spears vibes, the physicality of this match, to me, probably the way that Becky really wanted to come back and show that she still had it, was all on point. This was a great match between these two. So definitely one that you should check out again if you haven't seen it in a while. So then we get into 2022's Survivor Series, where we have Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi. And I think that this was a great opportunity for Shotzi to really be put into that women's title hunt. And she definitely did hold her own in this match for sure. She was taking chances with going into the crowd and diving off the railing and really just proving that she was not intimidated by Ronda Rousey or the antics of Ronda and Shayna trying to intimidate her. So I thought that really made Shotzi look good. And really just set off the tone that it seemed like they were going to try to put the rocket on Shotzi, but Ronda did retain the title, but still a good showing for Shotzi. And in this, the latest Survivor Series match that we have for the women, we have a War Games match with Team Bianca. We have Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Mia Yim, and Becky Lynch. On Team Damage Control, we have Bailey. We have Bailey. We have Kairi Sane. We have Nikki Cross and Rhea Ripley. So this was definitely something that was pretty cool to see, because I didn't know how this was going to go. But at the same time, I can't lie. I was trying to be, strategic in this. I can't say that this War Games match was better to me than the NXT Women's War Games match. I believe it was from 2019. I did like the surprise entrant with having Becky Lynch come in to be a part of Bianca's team. I thought that was pretty cool. I think the women did a great job of trying to get these awesome spots, but there was just something organic about how the women in NXT were doing these War Game matches, where it seemed like everything was just a bit more smooth, and just felt like there was like higher stakes involved in it. But I did think that overall, the women did pull out some matches that really, some spots that really did get a pop from the fans in this, and certainly set the tone for the excitement that I am pretty sure that everyone has for this upcoming Women's Survivor Series match that is only a few days away. So guys, that was my throwback recap of the history of women at Survivor Series. As you can see, with how much time we have spent on this, there is so much to look at with the women's involvement in Survivor Series. So I definitely hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking back. I started to remember or even be introduced to a lot of matches that I did not see before at Survivor Series. So that was pretty cool. And as we are in this holiday week before Survivor Series, make sure you check out some of these things and go back and kind of relive history. And I can definitely say that I am really excited for the Survivor Series. Just all around the entire show, I'm excited to see what type of surprises we're going to get for this very important night, usually, because it helps to set the tone of what's going to be on the minds of wrestling fans going into the Royal Rumble. So it's going to be pretty cool to see. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Survivor Series, because there has been some really cool things that have come out of it. And I really hope that that it really made you go down memory lane. Even talking about it and seeing some of the comments, it was making me remember certain things that just really fell off the radar for me. So once again, take this week to go back, look up stuff, think about what you are excited to see for this Survivor Series, and definitely stay tuned for what Deep Dive will continue to offer with the next episode coming up. Thank you so much for watching. Leave some comments on some of your favorite moments from Survivor Series, even outside of just the women's matches. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to what we're going to discuss on the next episode. Bye.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.